What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. If you are one of the people who reached out to see if I had survived, thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate you. I have been out at the North Star campout. I am up in the Pacific Northwest right now. I'm traveling back to where I normally be at, but for the meantime, I am out in a place where the internet connection is not as we are all accustomed to. So thank you for your patience. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. It is a pretty big week this week. It looks kind of contentious this week, you know? It looks like the kind of thing where we might run into some trouble and some power dynamics specifically. So let's think about that for a second. It's not that, this is one of the situations where it's like, you're not likely to not be involved in power games. And so it's going to be a good idea to figure out how to play that kind of game here. So there's two main things that's happening this week. One is we've got Venus in Gemini square to Mars in Virgo. That square has been building for a little bit of time now, but that is perfecting this week. And so so a square is going to be some kind of conflict or beef in some kind of way. These two are having trouble with one another, right? And so we've got Venus in Gemini, who I often think of as the social butterfly, right? Wants to go around and pollinate and get the little bits from here and the little bits from there and see what we can see about, isn't this so cute, right? That kind of thing. Getting together in some kind of way, especially like moving around ideas or information in some kind of way, in a way that is, I've been thinking about Venus in Gemini as like telling a sweet or compelling narrative in some kind of way, right? Square to Mars in Virgo. So Mars is gruff and aggressive. Mars is the one who wants to push, who wants to excite, who wants to get the spark moving in some kind of way. Let's get it popping. And in Virgo, Virgo is going to be very strongly concerned with the little details of the things. Are you sure about this detail and that detail? And if we can sort things into their proper places, then everything will be good and intelligible. That's what Virgo tends to like to do. Mars there is very strongly motivated to do the Virgo things, but is, one of the things that I think of Virgo is both of these signs are actually ruled by Mercury, and it's important to remember that Mercury is retrograde. This is big Mercury retrograde energy right now, right? Mercury is retrograde in Leo. And so both of these planets are, Mercury is the planet of communication and understanding, intelligibility, information, dissemination, all that sort of stuff. But Mercury retrograde, that's Mercury on its head. That's Mercury moving backwards, right? And so we might see things like miscommunication or misunderstanding and that sort of stuff. So we would expect these two, who already are in a square aspect to one another and kind of beefing, we would expect there to be some kind of like conflict or difficulty with that in some sort of way. But there's, it looks to me, so the other thing here is that the sun is going to be moving into Leo. Now, generally, I love to see the sun moving into Leo because the sun is at home and comfortable in Leo. But this time, we're going to see immediately, as soon as the sun enters Leo, we're going to see an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. And in fact, we're going to get a new moon in Leo. That is to say that the moon is going to come and conjoin the sun, and we're going to begin a new lunar cycle immediately, directly opposite from Pluto in Aquarius. And so this is likely to feel like some kind of power play, some kind of feeling around who owns what, who is in charge of what things, and how do I feel about that? Maybe I don't like that other people are in charge of such and such a thing. And so maybe I want to topple this authority in some kind of way or something like that. And maybe I need to get one of the managers on my side in order to make that happen. By the way, if you are interested in this kind of thing, if you would like to learn how to do astrology the way that I do it, or if you would like to get a reading from me because you don't feel like going through all the tedium that is learning astrology or anything like that, I think Astrology from the Ground Up, the course that I made, is very accessible and easy to do, but there's still many hours of lectures that it requires. The astrology is just a lot of information. And so if you want to do either of those things, you can go to zambodyfunk.com. There's also a whole bunch of music there. You can see Can't Help Myself. There's Breathe and other nice exercises. One of the things that we did out here at the North Star campout is we did the breath exercise together in a large group. And that was really exciting. It was very sort of transformative. And we did it around this. I'm currently sitting in a mother maple tree, the biggest, maybe the biggest tree I've ever seen. That's probably not true. I've seen some big trees, but it is a contender, and this tree is super dope. So all of that is available at zambodyfunk.com. You should maybe check it out. So power plays and miscommunications are likely to take place here. One of the things that I might think of is that nefarious powers are likely to be able to create deceit and like intentional misunderstanding. So it's very possible that unintentional misunderstanding is going to take place here during this time. And even if you are someone who is trying to deceive others because you want to increase your own power and authority or something like that, there are going to be so many opportunities for your plan to fuck up because you just forgot a thing, or it didn't work out the way that you wanted to, or something like that. Or there's one of the things that I mentioned in my talk at North Star was the difference between complicated and complex systems. A complex system is going to be the sort of situation, all living systems, so your body or the forest or any of these kinds of things are going to be wildly unpredictable because there is so much going on that it's impossible to know all of the directions that things might come from. And this is Mercury retrograde. It's a really good time to notice that there are many details that you just didn't think to hold down in whatever way to get control of, right? And so if you have some kind of plan where you are trying to make some under the table moves or something like that, I would expect that there are likely to be some under the table moves this week. Power players are very likely to make some power grabs this week. But there are likely to be holes in the plan in some kind of way. And so this is one of the things where, if you are, it is my custom, I will say, to assume good intentions from people for the most part. You know what I mean? And like, not necessarily, there's plenty of exceptions and where your real enemies are and that sort of shit, right? But like, for the most part, when I'm beefing with somebody, it's probably over some bullshit. We probably don't have to not be friends anymore. We don't have to fucking fight about it. But there's such a good chance for misunderstanding, for not really feeling where the other one is coming from, especially sort of like what I'm doing, what I think is so important right now. That's what I would expect from kind of the sun in Leo always, but the sun in Leo, especially opposite to Pluto this way, is very concentrated, very like what I think matters the most. And, Venus is the relational principle. It's making a square to Mars. It looks sharp. It looks like there is friction there, right? So it's difficult to make the relational piece work. And so it's going to require some extra doing in order to make that work. Now, what comes to mind now is that this is likely a good time to exercise your communication skills. One of the things that I sometimes think about is a difficult Mercury. So Mercury, for example, is retrograde in Pisces in Maya Angelou's chart. So that is an extremely, and I think conjunct Saturn as well, that is an extremely difficult Mercury placement. And yet she goes on to be the greatest poet the world has ever known, or something like that. And so it just requires time and commitment to the craft to be able to do communication at such a high level, right? So currently we have a difficult Mercury situation, and not only is Mercury retrograde, but there is conflict in between planets who are in Mercury signs. And so this is a good opportunity to slow down. Mercury retrograde always encourages you to slow down and think through, what do I actually mean? Venus, how do I want to relate to the people who are around me? And what really matters as far as the power dynamics are concerned? Do we have to really push on this, or are we maybe feeling some feelings, that come from a different place. Are we fighting about what we're fighting about, or are we fighting about something that is underneath the surface? This is a good week to plumb beneath the depths and see what's actually going on down there.